hydrate.
Yes, it's a warm one. It's a scorcher here.
Yeah, as we record, it's very hot in the Midwest, so make sure that you take care of yourselves and your loved ones and your pets. Don't leave your pet in the car. Don't leave your loved one in the car for an extended period of time.
Yeah, don't even go outside.
No, just stay inside. Put your head in the freezer.
Yeah. If you have like an underground bunker, maybe
if it's cold,
it would be cool. It's in the ground.
Right.
That's just science.
You don't know, I guess.
I actually do.
Yeah.
I think I do.
It's not that heat rises, it's that cold air drops. Is that true?
I don't know, but you said it with confidence.
I don't know. Let's Google it.
Nah.
It's getting hot in here, so take off. Nope.
Just you and me, buddy. Pants are not optional today.
Hey, everybody. I'm John Urban.
My name is Eric Chelland.
Welcome to the One Off Podcast. Today on the big show, it's Jim Berkenstadt. And you know who he is?
I do.
He's the rock and roll detective.
Yes.
That's super cool.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah.
He's got great stories.
Yeah. If you like music, if you like the Beatles, if you like research, investigation, and mystery, yeah, you want to listen to this episode.
If I ever had a rock and roll mystery that I needed solved, he would be the first guy I would go hire.
You'd call him. Yeah. I imagine that he has a door with the frosted glass, and it says Jim Berkenstadt, rock and roll detective on the glass.
And it's probably all in black and white.
But you walk down the hallway, it turns into black and white.
Yeah.
That's where,
that old noir feel.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you open the door and he's wearing a fedora.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, "Can I help you?"
Yeah. And the femme fatale comes in and like, "I have a question.
I have a rock and roll question.
I got a rock and roll mystery."
You want to know more, you should listen to this episode, but you can also go to rockandrolldetective.com, which is not in black and white because I've been there. Yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah, we're going to dive right into the episode, but we can't dive into it without thanking people.
This episode of the One Off Podcast is brought to you by Big Dreamers United. Big Dreamers United is a nonprofit designed to help other nonprofits with their creative communication needs. Find out more at bigdreamersunited.org.
You go from your normal voice to your announcer voice.
Really? I thought it was the same.
No.
Okay.
It's nice. We did something really cool for us. I think Jim enjoyed it too, our guest. We recorded this episode at Lola's in the sidecar.
Yes, we did.
And this is very cool. Thank you to Matt and Bryn and everybody at Lola's. It's cool to be in there. Just felt cooler. It felt like we'd made it.
Last time I was there, I was about maybe 5 to 10 feet away from Chris Martin of Coldplay.
You got invited to that. How did you get invited to that? And I didn't get invited to that.
It's my Hollywood connections.
It's because you're a rock star.
Nope. Yeah. Someone else is a rock star.
That's true. You know rock stars. We really want to thank Lola's. And if you want more information on the sidecar at Lola's, you can go to lolasmadison.com for all the info. You can have a happy hour there.
Ooh.
You could do a private dinner, special occasion, like maybe a karaoke birthday party, and the sidecar holds up to 30 guests.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, we should do that.
We should. Hey, John.
Yeah.
Quick question here.
Hit me.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
I don't have one because I can't sing.
Well, that doesn't matter. You can still do it.
I can't sing.
Not everybody that does karaoke can actually sing.
I have never done karaoke. You do karaoke?
You know, fun fact.
Yeah?
I've never done karaoke.
Are you joking?
I am not.
Then why did you even ask me?
Because I was hoping you had an answer. I didn't think we were both going to say, well, I've never done it before.
God, we're both karaoke losers.
Yeah. But
okay.
You know what mine would be, I think?
See, this is good. Now we'll find out.
I think I have one here.
Okay.
And it's not like an obvious. Like I would normally go with the Beatles, who are my favorite, or Pink Floyd, also my favorite, or Wilco. But I would go with Neil Diamond's Forever in Blue Jeans.
That's a great song.
Because some people think I sound like him when I sing, and I feel like I need to exercise that demon a little bit.
I don't think it's a demon. I think it's a blessing.
Well, yes. Right. So like I'm going to exercise that angel. Baby, tonight, by the fire, all alone, you and I.
And you said pants optional.
My pants are on. Oh, yours.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mine would be Mr. Blue Sky by ELO.
Ooh.
That's a great song.
That is a great song.
Yeah.
So we're going to both get 28 of our best friends
together.
And go karaoke at Lola's in the sidecar.
Yeah. And if you've never been to Lola's, one, what's wrong with you? And two, they're located at 617 North Sherman Avenue in Madison, Wisconsin. And the sidecar is, guess what? It's right next door. It's
to the side of it.
It's the sidecar.
Oh.
And it's not actually a car. It's a room. It's a lovely room.
Right. But if you put wheels on it.
Oh my God. Why? Why? All right, let's do it. Rock and roll detective time.
Da, da, da.
A long time ago, I interviewed a man by the name of John Doe from the band X. I don't know if you're familiar with him. And I was young and I was a little nervous. And I said, "Can I call you John?" And he said, "No," with a smile on his face. "Call me Mr. Doe." And so I smiled and he smiled. Everybody smiled. So I'm wondering, can I call you Jim? Can we call you Jim, or do we have to call you the rock and roll detective?
I think Jim's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Berkenstadt, otherwise known as the rock and roll detective, joining us on the One-Off. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thanks for being here, and I'm sorry that you're sleepy from your airline travels.
Delta wasn't ready when I was.
Wait, are they a sponsor?
Brought to you by Delta.
Yeah. Best-selling author, right?
Mm-hmm.
Producer, music historian, consultant, and now the rock and roll detective. Let's go back in time a little bit. One of the things we like to dive into here on this podcast is how people started off with their creative journeys.
Okay.
And you grew up in Chicago?
I did, yeah. Chicago suburbs, northern suburbs.
First question, Sox or Cubs?
Oh, another story. We were all Sox fans when I was first born, growing up. And then around 1965, my dad came home. He was a dentist. And he said, "Family, we're no longer Sox fans. We're now Cubs fans." And we're like, "What? I just learned all the names and their batting averages. What happened?" He said, "Well, this guy Maloney just joined the Cubs, and he's in charge. He's vice president of ticket sales or something. And he came to my office, and he needs a lot of dental work. So he said, I'm going to buy season tickets to the Cub games." And we're like, "Okay, we'll be Cubs fans."
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So for all the weekend games for a decade, we went and saw the Cubs.
I like how you were team dad and just jumped on board right away.
When I heard season ticket weekend seats, you bet.
And then did you really, did you fall for them right away for the Cubs, or did it take a while?
I did, because, it was like Don Kessinger, Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, Ron Santo, Randy Hundley, Fergie Jenkins, all these really cool classic players.
It's a group.
Yeah.
It is a group.
And they were really nice people. And, they were good for kids, like they would take the time to chat with kids and such. And I like that. Good role models.
So you're a kid in Chicago. What was the first thing that you creatively? I mean, obviously you become a writer at some point, but were you writing when you were young? Were you? I also want to know, did you play music when you were young?
Well, yeah. I mean, my parents used to play whatever it is they liked. Like big band music, and then some of the sort of dreary pop music of the early '60s, like the Perry Como type stuff. And, I wasn't a big fan of any of that. And then one day I was looking at the newspaper, and there was a pillow fight on the cover of the Chicago Tribune. And my mom said, these guys are going to be on Ed Sullivan's Sunday night. They're called the Beatles. You ought to check them out. I said, great. So I thought they were like Laurel and Hardy or the Marx Brothers because of the pillow fight.
Oh, comedy show.
Yeah. And so I was looking forward to funny physical comedy. And of course, they came on and started singing, "She Loves You" and whatever other hits. I Saw Her Standing There, that type of thing. And I was blown away. I'm like, finally, there's some music that I'm hearing in my life as an 8-year-old that really strikes me, and it sets me off. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just like amazed. And they looked completely different. They had long hair for that time period, and they just seemed really cool. So I became an immediate fan, and I said to my dad afterwards, I said, I want to get their record. And he said, all right, I'll get you their record, but you got to get a job. And I said, I'm 8. And he said, paper route. So
8 years old?
At 8 years old, I was doing a paper route in my little neighborhood of Winnetka. And then as I got older, when I got to be 14, and you had to be 16 to get a real job.
Yeah.
At least
you should probably have been 16 to get a paper route.
Yeah. Well,
8.
Just
a bike. Yeah.
I had a bike, and saddlebags. So anyway, that helped pay for 45s, but it was a little harder to get up to that $3 mark for the LPs.
Yeah.
Then at 14, he said, you can work at the grocery store now. And I said, you got to be 16. And he said, well, your brother's already there, and he talked to the boss, and the boss will illegally hire you at 14. And
What's
you're
the statute of limitations on this? Is it over? Are we okay?
We're good.
Are we good?
We're good.
I think we're good.
A couple of years ago?
So anyway, I was, grocery bagger. So, but as to your real question, which is about when did that creative bug first hit? I believe it was either 7th or 8th grade when the Paul McCartney is Dead story came out in 1969 in the fall. And I was really curious to find out what that was all about. It became national news at the time.
Right.
So I was just fascinated because I thought, well, I hope he's not dead because, I'm a Beatles fan. Yeah. So, I started researching all the clues that were in the articles or on the news, and I went in one day to the social science course, and beforehand I was showing my buddies all the album covers and explaining all the clues and all these things, and the teacher walked in and said, Jim, you really are up on this. Why don't you give a 1-hour talk to the class while I sit back and do nothing?
Brilliant teacher.
Yeah, brilliant teacher.
Yes.
Next Thursday, why don't you prepare a 1-hour detailed analysis of this? And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I did. And then that's when I thought, hey, studying about the Beatles or rock and roll is really fun and really interesting, and maybe it can be creative too. That wasn't really a creative experience, but it was the first time I became the rock and roll detective.
I think it is creative. You started investigating.
Yeah.
And your curiosity got you and you wanted to know.
Yeah. And I started looking on the back cover of albums, who produced this, who engineered it, who was in the credits, what did they do? That fascinated me. And so it just kind of went from there. I think I wrote my first article maybe at Northwestern University for the local daily Northwestern. And then from there, even though I had a career path, which was to go to law school and become a lawyer, I continued to do all of this research on the Beatles. And then I started to really focus on the area of their unreleased recordings, because around 69 and 70, bootleg vinyl started to come out.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, learn more about where did these recordings come from? How are they stolen or leaked out? And, were they authentic and all of that? So, and that really helped because eventually when I came to work for the Beatles, first I worked for George Harrison.
Isn't that fun to say?
It really
when
is.
I first came to work for the Beatles.
Yeah. I just can say I work with John Urban sometimes.
Yeah, that's not very
It's not even close.
No.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh,
I think, Eric.
It's okay.
Can I interrupt you? And we'll come back to when you first started working for the Beatles. Sorry.
Yeah.
Did you at any point, so you've been the rock and roll detective since you were 14?
Yeah, what is that?
That's what I think what you said.
That's right.
I was sort of listening.
I was 14.
Yeah. And then you went off to school. Was there any plan at all to maybe not get your law degree? Like be a journalist, be an investigator, do that kind of thing?
No.
No, you're going to get the law degree.
Yeah, I'm going to practice law, but I'm going to do this as my side gig.
Right.
Which is now my
real gig. And has been so then after law school, how long did you practice law?
Until about 2007 or 8.
So you stuck with it for a while.
Yeah, I was a trial attorney in Chicago. Then I moved here and got married to my wife, Holly, who I met at Northwestern originally.
I'm glad that when you said you got married, it was to your wife, Holly.
Yes, I got married to my soon-to-be wife, Holly. Anyway, and so I practiced law in Madison at Axley Brenelson, which now is called Axley. And
they're not a sponsor, are they?
Not yet.
Okay.
They will be.
All right.
And then I went to work for the Wisconsin Cheeseman as vice president and general counsel. And when they were sold around 2007 or 8, I retired.
Okay, so the whole time you're practicing law, you're doing the rock and roll detective on the side.
Right. In fact, I started working for George Harrison probably 1998.
Okay, I kind of want to know how does that happen? Does the phone ring and they're like, "Hi, it's George Harrison's people"?
Well, first let me back up to age 10.
Okay.
Before Paul was dead.
I got to write this
Delivered
down.
a paper to him on the paper route.
Before Paul was dead, at age 10, I went up to my parents and said, I know what I want to do. And they're like, what's that, Jimmy? And I said, I want to work for the Beatles someday.
Wow.
And they were like, oh, that's really nice.
Yeah. But
And
get your
laughed.
law degree.
Yeah, but you got to get a law degree or a doctor or something. You got to do something with your life in case that doesn't happen.
And one day you could take out George Harrison's spleen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't actually thinking about that 10-year-old Jim at the time, but I just heard that he was going to redo All Things Must Pass or like digitally remaster it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in the late 90s, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, we bought the vinyl, we bought the cassette version, we bought the 8-track version, and then we bought the CD version, and now we're coming out again with the CD version. And I thought he needs to think about adding some bonus tracks, whether they be demos or alternate takes or something. And I happen to have collected all of those. So I probably had about 50 unreleased versions, as well as tracks that were recorded for that album, All Things Must Pass, that were never released, which are called outtakes.
Right.
So I knew a guy in LA that did a lot of writing. He was a journalist and did a lot of writing for rock magazines and things. And I said, do you know who assists George Harrison? And he said, yeah, I know her. And I said, well, give me her name and phone number.
Would you mind?
Yeah. So he did, and I called her up and I said, hey, George needs to add these extra tracks, and I'm just the guy to help him on this. And she's like, who are you? I'm like, well, I wrote Black Market Beatles, and I've been told that Neil Aspinall used it during the making of the Beatles anthology and yada yada. And she goes, oh, all right. I'll tell him about you, and I'll let you know what he says. So he went back to her and said, yeah, get this guy on board.
Nice.
So I said, I'll do it for free. And she goes, no, we have to pay you. Okay.
Good answer.
So I started working for George Harrison and, working on that. And then one day he asked about the lost Get Back recordings. And I gave him this long explanation. He said, whoa, this is like incredibly detailed knowledge. And I said, well, I've been collecting this stuff, and I network with other people who are collectors or write about this sort of thing. And I wrote about it, Black Market Beatles, and Neil Aspinall used it, and yada, yada. He goes, oh, wow, okay. So he didn't tell me what he's going to do, but then later at his last meeting before he passed away, he was at an Apple board meeting. Apple Corps is the name of their company. And Paul was there, Ringo was there, and Yoko, representing the late John Lennon, was there. And Neil Aspinall, their longtime CEO, who started out as their road manager in like 1961. So George says, oh, there's this guy named Jim Berkenstadt in Madison who can...
He has a paper route.
Yeah. I used to. He can help us find these tapes, I think.
That's very good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So Ringo cuts in and says, George, where's Madison? And Paul McCartney said, Ringo, it doesn't matter where Madison is. George has Jim's telephone number. So that's how it happened that I finally, after age 10, thinking about it, I got hired by the Beatles to try to find these Nagra B-roll tapes that would sync up to the filming of what was the Let It Be movie, but much more later it became the Get Back documentary.
Did you really think in your brain at 10 that you would truly work for them one day, or was it a pipe dream? And then what was it like then when it happened?
Well, the thing is, I actually told them I wanted to work for the Cubs and the Beatles.
Okay.
And this was another strange deal. I got out of law school, and it was Jimmy Carter's president. There was a recession. And so no one was hiring lawyers in Chicago. And I get a phone call out of the blue, and a guy I play softball with says, hey, you're not working, are you? And I said, no, I'm just sending out resumes. He said, well, I just got hired as manager of the new in-house Cubs security department, and I need someone I can trust, and having a lawyer on board, that would be great. I said, wow. What would I do? He goes, you'll sit up in a skybox eating hot dogs and Pepsis, and you'll have all these like cameras at your control there where you can watch, make sure fans don't do anything. And if they do, you just push record and go back to watching the game. And I said, "You're going to pay me for that?" And he did. So after that happened, I figured, well, why not the Beatles?
I've got one in the bag.
I got one down.
Yep.
So, this is all about manifestation. I really believe if you focus on something, and not everything's in our control, but if you focus on something for a long time, you want to happen and do things towards that goal, that it can sometimes happen.
We have a dream of more than 17 people listening to this podcast.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're going to make it.
And
I think
now I
you're
kind of want
higher
that to
than
include one of the Beatles.
Sure.
Yeah.
Listening would be
I think
cool
the Beatles
too.
are here with us right now.
Or at least a Cub.
Well, Ringo can't find Madison, so he
That's
won't
true.
find your podcast.
He's played Milwaukee plenty of times
I know.
now at Summerfest and things like that. All right. So let's go back to the Let It Be tracks that you found.
Yeah.
Right? Did I have that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that come into play then with the Peter Jackson documentary?
Yes. So Neil Aspinall called me about 2 months after George passed away, told me that George had recommended me, which I already knew.
Yeah.
And because I had heard that tape, he said, "Yeah, I'd like you to come to work for us as a consultant, and this is our first project." And he said, "We're missing like 504 Nagra, which is the name of the tape recorder, B-roll tapes. So most of the Let It Be movie and this Peter Jackson documentary, most of the time it was 2 cameras with 2 Nagra recorders. One was A-roll and the other was B-roll.
Right.
And they were missing 100% of the B-roll audio.
Okay.
So that meant they couldn't pursue the concept that they had talked to themselves about of creating a long-form documentary versus the 90-minute Let It Be movie. And they really wanted to do the long form because the Let It Be movie, the way it was cut, the way it was edited, kind of looks like they're breaking up. It kind of creates this impression that it's a downer time for them. And even though they did break up shortly after, or a year after that, the fact is, if you've listened to all that tape, as I have, there's a lot of happy times. There's a lot of times where they're joking and jamming on songs and things. And it's just a fun time, a good part of it. And then there's other discussions like, where should we have this concert? And they talk about, the Middle East, and they talk about doing it on a cruise ship. And ultimately they finally said, let's just do it on the roof.
Why do you think that the edit came out as kind of negative in the original film?
Well, it was the way Michael Lindsay Hogg, the director, shaped it.
The vision?
Yeah. And maybe those particular moments lingered a little bit more with him. Maybe he felt that's kind of the direction things are going, so I'm going to, edit it that way. I don't know. We'd have to ask him in the next podcast.
Do you have his number?
I can get it.
Okay. Perfect. I think you can get anyone's number.
Yeah, my manager knows him, so I can get him.
Knows a guy who knows a guy. So all of this work with the Beatles over the years, and then when did you start branching out to look at other bands and other investigations, Rock and Roll Detective?
Well, there's 2 different things. Other bands in terms of consulting. I started working with Butch Vig and
tell people who are listening and that don't know who Butch is.
If you're
who Butch
in
is.
Nebraska right now,
They know him in Nebraska, but maybe we have a huge listenership in Asia, and they may not know
Asia.
Butch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Butch Vig grew up in Viroqua, Wisconsin. Ringo doesn't know where that is.
Definitely not.
And went to the UW film school and worked on soundtracks for films. And then he met up with Steve Marker, and they started doing things in Steve's basement, like recording a few friends and stuff. And he got into production then. And eventually he produced Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana, Foo Fighters, L7, Freddie Johnston, on and on. He's produced a lot of really great records.
Then I think he went on to be in a band. I think he's in a band. What's the name of the band?
So he went on to be in this band called Garbage, where I used to hang out a lot at Smartin. I wasn't 14 anymore, so I was allowed to stay out late. And one night he played this song for me called Vow, and it featured Butch on vocals where he auto-tuned his voice up because he had the idea that it would be great to have a female sing this song.
So Shirley wasn't there yet.
Shirley wasn't in the picture yet, but one night Steve Marker went into the lounge at Smart Studios, which was at Baldwin and East Wash. And
For Ringo when he's right.
Yeah, Ringo, if you're looking.
Yeah.
It's somebody's apartment now, so don't just show up.
Where's Madison?
Yeah, I think it's an Airbnb, isn't it?
Is she doing
Didn't she
it
turn it into an Airbnb?
I don't know if
She lives there.
she lives there. I know that, and
Well, now
it's a really cool. It's a really cool spot now. But anyway, so I heard that and I thought, wow, this is a really cool song. And then Steve Marker went in the other room like a couple nights later and saw Shirley with her Scottish group Angelfish doing a rock video on 120 Minutes on MTV. And so they decided to try to get a hold of her, and they did, and they got her to come over to the frozen tundra of Madison, where she was miserable, but she stayed at the delightful Edgewater Hotel all that time, and they sort of tried things out and came up with a couple songs, and then she went home, and then she came back, and eventually they just formed this group. Duke Erickson had been in Spooner with Butch Vig, and so anyway, so I was sort of on the ground floor of that, so I became their historical consultant for different things. And
that must have led into the Nirvana book.
It did lead into my, Nevermind Nirvana book. And I really wanted to, I had actually read a book about the Milwaukee Brewers where the writer dissected just one baseball game, inside and out, all the stuff you don't see or hear or know.
Every behind the scenes moment.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And so I thought, this is cool, and I'm into rock and roll, so I want to do the same thing, but with a rock album. So that's where the idea came from, and I worked with Charles Cross, who was a famous Seattle rock writer, and he worked for Rolling Stone, and we worked together on it, and it was a real joy. And, through Butch, of course, we got to not just talk to the members of the band, other than Kurt, who had passed away, but also, all the people with the record label.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, very detailed behind-the-scenes story of how, in my opinion, the greatest rock album of the 90s was made starting here in Madison and finished in L.A.
I read in the Mysteries of the Music book that you wrote, there was a little section where it talked about Butch Vig cranking up on your speakers, punk song, which would become Territorial Pissings. And it blew out your speakers.
Yes.
Is that all part of that research for that other book as well?
It's in that book. Well, actually, I don't think
it's... Or is
it's
that just for that one?
I think it was just in Mysteries of the Music that I mentioned that, but it happened while I said to him, I'd like to listen to your demos and things and have you answer questions about everything, and both Madison and unreleased stuff from the LA things that he had given me copies to listen to, and then I wanted to have him over, and he said, we got to turn that up, and it immediately blew out the speakers.
That's funny.
Yeah, but those speakers have been around since college, so.
Did he get you new speakers?
No.
Butch.
Come
on, Butch. Let's call him.
I got new speakers.
Okay, good. The books, there's Mysteries in the Music, right? Case closed.
Yeah.
Also, the Nirvana Nevermind, which we just talked about.
Right.
And all available at Amazon, I'm guessing still.
Yeah, Black Market Beatles. And then The Beatle Who Vanished is probably my most popular book.
And that's something you've been working on that for years.
Years.
Yeah.
Over 10 years.
Tell people what that book's about.
That's a good question.
Wait, do you have to, by the way.
Wait, is that a copy?
By the way, Jim, this is not video, so you can hold the book up, but that's not going to help anybody.
No, I'm not holding the book up. I'm going to read the blurb on the back cover.
Okay, all right.
The Beatle Who Vanished is the first historical account of Jimmy Nicol, an unknown drummer whose journey from humble beginnings to saving the Beatles' first world tour was only one part of his legend. Though his 13 days of fame made headlines, the true mystery of Nicol's story is riddled with blacklisting, betrayal, drugs, divorce, bankruptcy, and an eventual disappearance that led many to question whether he was dead or alive.
Wow. Good blurb.
Thanks.
That's rock and roll
now,
right there.
Jim is going to read chapter 1.
No, I don't want to put your readers to sleep.
No. So there's rumor out there that this book, looking for Jimmy and finding out what happened to him, might or might not become a movie.
I've signed an option with ECOS, which is a independent film studio in England, in London, and it first came to my attention through Alex Orbison, the youngest son of Roy Orbison. He contacted me first and said, "Hey, I think this is a great book." And I said, "Is this really Alex Orbison?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Someone, shared a social media post that you did with me on the Roy Orbison post." And that's how I heard about it. And I said, "Oh, great." So at first we did a deal with ECOS, and then later I found that it might be more, I could provide more creative input and know what's going on more if I was direct with them. He and his other investors remain invested in the film, but I'm now directly optioned with the studio.
Okay, and I don't know if I saw this when I was seeing the rumors about it. A documentary or narrative?
Well, actually, ECOS wants to make a drama out of it. Narrative, and then this guy named Leonardo DiCaprio.
Never heard of him.
Well, he grew up in Viroqua.
He had a paper out in Viroqua.
We did.
By the way,
fun fact.
You know the rule. You can only refer to something 3 times, right? We've gone to Ringo like 4 times now, so we can't say Ringo.
We also went to paper route 4 times.
Did we?
I just did.
You
Okay.
did.
Yeah. So we're breaking all the rules. Let's rock and
Jim,
roll.
We're on the same page now?
No more paper out. No more Ringo.
So
Leonardo owns a production company called Appian Way that mostly only puts out Leo movies, but they optioned the book, The Beatle Who Vanished, for a documentary.
Okay. Do you want to tell people the quick story behind it? Jimmy played for 13 days with the Beatles?
Right. What's interesting is that back in those days, which was 1964, there was no insurance for someone to get sick and to cancel a tour like we hear. A lot of these, old rockers today, they get ill and they can't tour, but it's no problem.
Right.
The insurance takes care of the promoters and the ticket sales.
Your ticket will be good in November.
Right.
Your ticket will be good in April.
Exactly. So that didn't exist, and there were no out clauses in the legal contracts for the Beatles to get out of playing if there was an illness or an injury. So
wasn't this their first big tour?
This was not only the Beatles' first world tour, I think it was any rock band's first world tour. So it was big, and I know from looking in the archives of the Australian promoter, it was 4 boxes of letters going back and forth between Beatle manager Brian Epstein and the promoter. And, that was the same all over the world. For all these events, they had to make sure they had hotels, and then they had to have backup instruments, and then they had to take care of all the warm-up bands, and were the warm-up bands going to be with the Beatles from England, or would they need a warm-up band in Australia, and all that sort of thing. So a full year of planning went into this world tour thing. So the day before they were to leave was a photo session at noon in London, and Ringo just collapsed to the floor and was out. And Neil Aspinall told me that he just picked him up in his arms and carried him to a car and drove him to the hospital.
Wow.
So he had tonsillitis.
Oh, you pass out from tonsillitis?
Well, if you're Ringo, you
Ringo does.
Ringo was kind of sickly as a kid, so maybe that was. Now he's like the healthiest Beatle. So
peace and love.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Anyway, they told him he'd have to spend 2 weeks there.
Why 2 weeks?
Because they didn't have penicillin, I guess. I'm a doctor of jurisprudence.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, doctor. I'm sorry.
He went the lawyer route.
Yeah,
I went the lawyer route because I was bad at science, good at arguing.
All right, so Ringo has to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. They need a drummer.
Yeah, and George Harrison says, if Ringo's not going, we're not the Beatles, and I'm not going to go either.
Oh, no.
So now there was some drama there where Brian had to explain, you guys don't understand, pop bands don't last very long, and you have this great opportunity to tour the whole world and make them all aware of your music. So we really need to do this. There's no way to cancel. There's no out clauses, yada, yada. So the three of them then, John, Paul, and Brian, convinced George to go. Later, George said, in the Beatles anthology, when it came up and he was being interviewed about it in 1993 or 4, he said, you see, it was like, how many people does it take to screw in a light bulb, 4 Beatles or something like that? So, so he's still a little probably miffed about the idea because he was loyal to Ringo. Right. And in fact, there's this little film clip. It's on YouTube, but it's Jimmy drumming and the newsreels are going and they're filming the Beatles all standing around him. And George actually balls up his fist and pretends to punch Jimmy Nicol in the head. Yeah, like ha. And he probably did that because he figured Ringo will be watching on the news.
Yeah, and he was all in play, right? Yeah,
all in play, of course.
But still.
But it was a dramatic moment. But what's interesting is Jimmy was like the third drummer asked. The first one said, I'm too busy, I'm in the studio, and I can't afford to make the fixer, the guy that, sets up all these dates. If I disappear for 2 weeks, he'll put me on the bottom of the list. Right now, I'm on the top of the list.
Yeah.
People doing sessions in those days were making twice as much as the average British worker. So that was a pretty good spot to be in.
He didn't want to lose a spot.
Right. The next guy had just opened his own nightclub, so he obviously had to be there, and he was busy doing that. So then
they probably didn't ask Pete Best.
No, that's a good question, because I asked Pete Best, because I, of course, am very thorough as an author and historian. So he said, no, they didn't ask me. And later I found a quote from John Lennon. He said, no, I don't think that would have been appropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, after they had just fired him 2 years earlier. So anyway, so Jimmy had been seen. I actually found footage from the BBC archives that showed Jimmy at a recording session for one of Brian Epstein's other clients. And you can see Epstein looking at Jimmy Nicol playing drums during the session through the glass from the producer's office there. And so I knew then that Brian Epstein was aware of Jimmy Nicol, and so was Paul McCartney, because Jimmy was playing with, I can't think of the name now, but it was a popular band that played a lot of rhythm and blues at a nightclub, and Paul had attended this nightclub many times.
So he'd seen Jimmy play.
And he had seen Jimmy play.
Okay.
So he's familiar with him. And what blew them all away when they got to Abbey Road was that suddenly Jimmy knew all of Ringo's drum parts for every Beatles song that they rehearsed.
How did he know that?
Well, you'll have to read the book. Because I found out.
The Beatle Who Vanished by Jim Berkenstadt, available at Amazon.com.
Right.
Good.
Da-da-da.
Very good. I'm a huge Beatles fan.
Okay.
And I've talked about this. I'm a musician, but I didn't become a songwriter or want to become a songwriter until the anthology came out. Mm-hmm. And that was a big, big time for me when I watched my parents watching the anthology. And they were living it like you lived it originally.
Right.
They were reliving it and seeing all these interviews and hearing all these outtakes. I was working in a baseball card shop in Mineral Point, Wisconsin, and the only station that would come in was either a country station, which I wasn't a fan, or WLX, which is the oldie station in Madison. Mm-hmm. And it was mostly playing that early, kind of late 50s or early 60s. So I knew a lot of the early Beatles stuff, but I didn't know anything about the band until the anthology came out. Okay. So I was watching them watch it, and then I just got fascinated just instantly and became the young Jim researcher of I want to know all about this music, and I want to learn how to write songs. And so that's where I learned to write songs, was all from the anthology. And I just thought that, does your family, did they, with your passion and see all of the work and research you're doing, did they also become attached to the Beatles a little bit more?
Well, my brother and sister are 8 and 10 years older than me. So they were around when the Beatles hit. Mm-hmm. My brother was a big Beatles fan, and I think he bought the albums all the way along. And I remember, I think in 1967, which mean I was, 11 or something. I walked into my room, and there on the record player was a sealed copy of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with a note from my brother. Happy birthday, Jim.
Wow.
Hope you like this. Love, Gene. And I'm like, oh, look how cool that album is. And then to put it on and just be blown, had my mind blown. It was
Start with
great.
the amazing artwork and then the amazing music.
My sister was she was into theater and stuff, so she was into show tunes. My mom loved the Beatles, and my dad held out for a while until he heard Michelle and Yesterday. When he heard those, he said, all right, these guys are for real. And he started to hear them as the Beatles matured and started to expand their concepts, their creativity, etc.
Yeah.
And so he eventually became a Beatle fan, I think.
With your black market Beatles research and all the collecting that you've done, do you have a favorite piece that you've picked up, or a favorite obscure album or something that you've picked up over the years that just is number one in your book?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the, and they're mostly all released now, but the White Album acoustic demos where they all met at George's house and started to rehearse songs that would become part of the White Album. And they had first written them a month or so earlier when they went to India to hang out with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. That's where they wrote a lot of the songs for the White Album. And then they came back to George's house and in England, and it's a great, continuous tape of just them working on the different songs that would end up on the album. When Apple in the 2000s released a box set of the White Album, they digitally cleaned those all up, and most of them are found on that box set now. That was like a favorite way back.
That's a big part of the Get Back film that you mentioned too, that I loved, was seeing the songs that we know came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Literally out of nowhere, out of their minds and out of their jam sessions, or just like a lyric that would come over.
Right, like Paul McCartney just had read something in the news about this guy in their, not Congress, what do they call it over there?
Is it Parliament?
Parliament, yeah. Some guy in the Parliament was like, we can't let Pakistanis into the country. And so an immigration thing. And the idea started, and he's like, don't want no Pakistanis taking all the people's jobs. Get back. Yeah. So Get Back started as this sort of immigration type theme, and then slowly the words changed. But to hear that sort of evolution is fascinating to me, and that the whole idea for that really was crystallized for me in college when I took an art course, and they were showing how Picasso had started this thing with a drawing and then did a little kind of sample painting, and then slowly but surely it evolved into the final work. And I suddenly said, that's why I'm so much into these bootleg recordings, because the creative evolution is fascinating to me. I mean, I love what you ultimately hear on the radio or today on Spotify, but I wanted to hear how they got to that point.
Yeah, that anthology, listening to outtakes of 12. It's like just the little minute differences and seeing that progress.
Right.
Just fascinating stuff.
It is. It's amazing.
We were mentioning favorites, and as a professional photographer, someone once asked me what my favorite photo was that I've ever, and I stopped and I was like, that's a great question. And I didn't know the answer. And I probably still haven't found the answer because I haven't spent enough time thinking about it.
Right.
But do you have, in your career as the rock and roll detective, do you have a favorite moment that in meeting all these amazing people and finding out all this amazing information, do you have a moment that you love or that just sticks with you that...
Should have asked me that a week ago in email. I have a lot of moments. Let me think here. I just have different ones, but I mean, obviously getting to meet, this one is connected to Paul McCartney is Dead. So in 1976, in Chicagoland, my buddy Gary and I were still best friends. We lived next door to each other.
Back then or now?
Back then.
Okay. Hi, Gary.
He'll like
Shout out, Gary.
So Gary and I went. I think my dad said you can't take the car to Chicago Stadium. It's too dangerous. Right. So we took the car to Chicago Stadium, and it was Paul McCartney and Wings, 1976. I think it was in May. And my mom knew the guy that ran Chicago Stadium. So he said, I'll just take care of them, when they get in. And
Jim literally showing you the phrase, it's who you know matters.
it's called networking.
Yeah.
Right.
So
your
mom knows a guy.
My mom knew the guy, Mr. Pemberton, I think was his
Shout
name.
out.
Hello,
Mr.
Mr. Pemberton.
He's no longer with us.
Not that you
Family.
know.
So he put us in 2 folding chairs in the empty orchestra pit right next to Paul McCartney's piano.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, first, before we went in, we decided to share a case of beer.
That's nice that you shared with each other.
We
Yeah.
split a case of beer, so we were goners.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, there might have been some weed involved. So we get in there and the show starts and it's great. And all of a sudden, Paul goes into Live and Let Die, where he had these exploding pots right on the edge of the stage.
Oh.
And he would go, live and let die, and he'd hit this chord, and then the explosion would go off. That's all I remember at that point, because we were blown off our chairs where we were like on our backs with our feet up in the air, looking at each other. And then, when you're young, and you're really drunk, you're not in pain, which that was a good thing.
Sure.
So we picked ourselves back up, dusted ourselves off, and each time, he hit that chord, we were like, no, we're not sitting in these chairs. We're backing up. Anyway, there was a break in the action where I think Denny Lane played a couple songs on his own, and Paul and Linda came down the steps there, and Paul came over and said, well, how do you like the show? And I said, Paul, this is the best concert I'll ever go to. And apparently that was the right answer.
Yeah.
Right.
So he had a big smile on his face, and we started chatting about this and that and the tour and whatnot. And then we switched places because I thought, well, Gary's going to want to talk to Paul too. So I went to talk to Linda, and I said, Linda, it's so nice to meet you. And, your keyboard playing is amazing.
What else are you going to say?
Well, yeah, after half a case of beer.
Yep.
So I said, I just have this one historical question if you could help me with. Because the whole Paul's dead thing came back to me. I said, before that whole Paul's dead thing, you dated Paul before that happened, right? She goes, yeah. I said, and then after that, you married Paul, right? She goes, yeah. I said, did you marry the original Paul or did you marry the fake Paul that took his place? And she just bent over laughing. She had tears coming out of her eyes and she just really thought that was funny. And I said, well, I'm going to take that laughter to mean that Paul is not dead.
Yeah.
And she said,
Confirmed.
right. Confirmed.
Yeah, my friend used to say, well, if he was replaced, this new guy is sure doing a great job.
Yeah.
He's a really solid bass player too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who else have you met along the way that you loved meeting? I mean, you worked for George. Did you get to meet George?
I didn't get to meet him just because he didn't live that long and he was trying to get a lot of medical attention and he just was he wasn't doing much public anything and I don't think he was coming to LA where I would have flown to meet him. I've met Ringo. I've met Jeff Lynne. Who else have I met? George Martin, Giles Martin. One time I was in an elevator with our friend Jay Olson.
Jay Olson, who's a huge Beatles fan.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're in this elevator and we are, again, 2 sheets to the wind.
Okay.
And I was kind of like, my head was bobbing downward. It was a long elevator ride. And Jay goes, Jim, what? That's Harry. Harry what? He said, no, not Harry what? Harry who? I said, well, who? He said, you're standing next to Harry Nilsson. I'm like, Harry, how are you? And Harry said, oh, I'm sorry. I should know you, right? And I said, no.
Nope.
You don't know me, but I know you. You're Harry. And he goes, that's right. And I said, we knew he was somewhere in the building. So I had this LP, which was an album that John Lennon produced for him called Pussycats.
Okay.
Came out in 1974. And on the cover of the album, they looked like little cartoon cats, but yet their heads are on their bodies so you can see that it's Harry Nilsson and John Lennon as Pussycats.
Okay.
And I said, would you sign my Pussycats album? And he goes, oh, that was a really fun album to make. I said, yes, I've heard.
I've researched this.
Yes, during the lost weekend of John's life. So he signed To Jim, Love, Harry. And then he signed something else that I couldn't really see. And he says, well, I hope to see you guys around. And we're like, yeah, we'll have to look for you and have drinks. Or
On
something.
our next elevator ride.
Yeah, and he had a big drink in his hand. So he went off, and I said, Jay, this is hilarious. And he goes, what? And I said, look, he wrote rug on the rug in the picture. And it had, it looked like a little kindergarten classroom that they were in. So there were those, the blocks that have the alphabet letters on them. And Jay says, Jim, you idiot. He wrote drugs. I said, no, it just says rug. He goes, no, there's a D block, then rug, and then an S block on the other side of the rug. I said, oh my God, Jay, you are a genius.
To be fair, you'd had half a case of beer.
Right. Or something. Yes. So I thought that was funny that Jay figured that out for me. He's
always been the smarter one.
Smarter guy. Yeah.
Speaking of Jay Olson, huge Beatles fan and friend of ours, I told him that we were doing this podcast with you. And I said, what's something I should ask Jim? I said, you guys have been how long have you been friends with Jay?
Oh, since about 1989 or 90. But
good.
We think that we met before that because I used to come up to Madison to see Holly before she was my wife.
Right.
And I would always say, let's go to State Street because I just wanted to go to record stores. And he worked at, I think it was called Lake Street Station Record Store or something like that.
Sure.
And so I think I went there every time. So I think I ran into Jay before I even knew him.
I asked Jay, I said, do you have a question for Jim for the podcast? And he said, yeah. He said, ask him about the bubble. And I said, the bubble?
The bubble?
Yeah. And he said, so it's not ringing a bell right away.
Not even.
What question bothered the Beatles the most?
Oh, yeah.
What was the bubble?
When will the bubble burst?
That was from the press?
The press would always ask, when will the bubble burst to the Beatles?
And the Beatles hated this.
They didn't like that.
Yeah.
No, it was annoying.
It's pretty rude.
It makes sense.
But, I could see it from their perspective because back then, pop bands didn't have any lasting,
right.
careers.
Yeah, they weren't around forever.
Thank God Jimmy Nichols saved their career.
For those 13 days.
Well, or forever.
So to go back to the Jimmy Nicol thing, we have to buy the book to find out what happened to him, right?
That is pretty much true. I will tell you that it's filled with a lot of drama and suspense and mystery.
Yeah. Did you spend decades tracking him down?
I spent 8 years trying to figure out what happened. And I reached a certain point where he ended up going to Sweden and then Mexico and then back to London. And then he just seemed to vanish off the planet. His son said, I haven't seen or heard from him in years. And
wow.
So I got leads from some mysterious guy in Mexico because he said that, because I've written a second edition. The new edition solves what ultimately happened to him. It's called The Beatle Who Vanished, 60th Beatles Anniversary Tour edition.
So don't buy the first one.
Yeah, don't buy the first one from a third party or you won't know, but buy the one that has the long subtitle and that's the one that gives you all the answers. But this guy said, yeah, we had kind of a Mexico rock Grammy type situation, or it was a one-time deal where we wanted to give lifetime achievement awards to people who were most important to Mexican rock and roll from the 60s onward. And he said, we tried to find Jimmy Nicol. We couldn't find him, but we found his wife his second wife that he married in Mexico and lived with her for just a year, but they still created work together. Her name's Maria. And he said, we decided to invite her. We honored her because she was also a rock person, but we gave her Jimmy Nichols award. I said, oh, okay. Anything unusual happen? Like, were there any strangers at this event? He goes, oh, no, but I got a call from a mysterious woman like a week after the event. And she said, can I have Jimmy Nichols' gold award or, medal award?
Yeah.
And he said, no, I gave it to his former wife. And she hung up.
Oh, yeah.
So he gave me her name. I did more research, and you'll have to read the
book. If you're a police officer or a real detective, no offense, mind
What?
you.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Whoa.
And you call someone, you say, I'm Detective so-and-so with the such and such agency. When you call people and say, I'm Jim Berkenstadt.
Great question.
Thanks. That's why we're here. And you call and say, I'm the rock and roll detective. Do they hang up on you or do they take your, how does it, what happened?
In Mysteries in the Music, Case Closed, there is a chapter called Did the CIA Kill Bob Marley?
Right.
And I wanted to know directly from the CIA. So I called two people. One was Colonel Oliver North, who was the National Security Advisor.
Never heard of him.
Ronald Reagan. And the other was this guy named Joey, who was, according to the records that I had found that Colonel Oliver North directed me to, because I used Freedom of Information Act.
Mm-hmm.
I sent it off to the Obama administration, and then I also sent it off to the next president, who was Trump. I got the same exact letter back. We can neither confirm nor deny whether we have any CIA information about the CIA with respect to Bob Marley, which means, to all of you who aren't lawyers out there, we have it and we're not giving it to you because we're the United States government. We're very transparent. So when I went to Colonel Oliver North, I called him up. I said, hey, Colonel North, this is Jim Berkenstadt, the rock and roll detective. And he goes, okay.
You said, I'm a real detective.
He said, what is that? And I explained it to him, what I do. And I said, I can't get these records. And he said, well, they were declassified 20 years ago. I've read them. I said, well, where can I get them? He said, have you heard of this little website called WikiLeaks? They have them. So he directed me to WikiLeaks. Anyway, once I got the records, it listed two columns. The first, it would have the person's name, and then it would say, this is their fake name they're using as diplomats in the ambassador's office in Jamaica. And this is their real name and their real title. So I picked the guy that was chief of station, CIA. That means the top dog in that location. And his name was Joey something. I call him up. He's 88 years old and he's living in Florida. Joey, hello, who's this? I said, this is Jim Berkenstadt, the rock and roll detective. And he said, what's that? So, yes, it does happen. And then I said to him, let me ask you a question. You were the assistant to the ambassador in Jamaica in 1976. Is that right? And he goes, yeah, that's right. I said, but you were also at the same time the CIA chief of station in Jamaica. I don't know if I can talk about that.
I cannot confirm or deny.
Yeah. I said, dude, you retired what, like 30 years ago?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, but you're never really retired from the CIA.
Plus, we don't know who's listening right now to this call. So
Right. Yeah, It was amazing to me that he was still a little paranoid about that. But I schmoozed him long enough to get what I needed. So you'll have to read the book to find out.
You have to read the book. I think that's the moral of the story here. That's the message we're all taking home. Speaking of books, as we record this, it is early summer of 2026. And is there a new book on the horizon from the rock and roll detective, which is a real job?
Yes. Yes, there is. In August, I'm coming out with a new book called Elvis Presley, Conversations with Scotty Moore. Scotty Moore was Elvis Presley's first lead guitarist, first band manager, and the first person to really audition him. And then after Elvis came over to his house on 4th of July, 1954, and Bill Black was there to accompany him as well. Bill Black was a bass player. They seemed to like him enough to suggest that they go in with Sam Phillips to the Sun Studios and try to record something. And they came away with That's All Right, Mama and Blue Moon of Kentucky, which really started everything rolling. And then they were together. He was together with Elvis through the movies, through the RCA years, the Sun years and everything, all the way till 1968 when they did the Singer Sewing Machine NBC TV reunion special.
The comeback special? Was it?
Comeback special, right. And it was interesting because, he had a lot to say about Colonel Tom Parker, none of it too positive. But it was just an interesting thing where I spoke to him on the phone for about 3-4 years and recorded all these questions I had about his time with Elvis. So that's what that book's about.
And we won't give too much away, but there was turmoil there, wasn't there? Between
Turmoil, yes.
Oh, there's no teaser for the book.
Turmoil. And I got another book on the horizon for next year.
Can you tease that one now?
Yeah.
Because I want to put in my pre-order now.
There you go. But this one's another Beatle mystery.
Ooh.
And it's called John Lennon's Mendips Mystery Guitar. Mendips is the name of John's childhood home in Liverpool. It's still standing. Yoko bought it and donated it to the National Trust.
Wow.
And in fact, Yoko gave me permission to go up into the attic or loft where this guitar was allegedly found, along with 2 banjo music magazines, to investigate. So thank you, Yoko Ono and Sean Ono Lennon, for permission. So that is a mystery because in 1996, some workmen were up in the loft, came down and showed it to this widower who was living there all alone and said, hey, we just found these up here. And then some people came over and he gave it away to these 2 men. And next thing you know, it was in the Beatles Story, which is their big museum in Liverpool of Beatles stuff. And it was on the side of trains and everything. And then later it was sold at Sotheby's or Bonham's auction house.
Here's the fun part about this. You're never going to run out of material.
I know.
You can write book after book after book.
Yeah. I have all kinds of things where I just pick a fun mystery.
Yeah.
And, the Beatles, I know the best. So, but I mean, Mysteries in the Music's about lots of different artists. And this
Great
one's-
book.
This one. Thank you.
I very much enjoyed that.
I
There's a really
enjoyed-
cool one about Elvis in there too.
Yeah. Cool story about Elvis, who really discovered him.
Yeah.
You read that book. I read all of Jim's books.
What?
I did. I haven't yet. I started. But thank you for doing
He's
the homework,
reading the
Eric.
back cover.
And
I
book.
did read the back cover.
It says here, ChatGPT says
Yeah.
this book.
It's cool.
One of the things we like to do here, Jim, on the One Off podcast is we want to be a podcast with a purpose. So each episode, we like to shout out a nonprofit. And since we're based, it can be anywhere in the world, but we're based in Madison, Wisconsin. I think you like a nonprofit here in Madison.
I do. I run the Kramer Foundation, which gives to various nonprofits in the Madison and Sun Prairie area.
That's very nice of you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
My wife, her family started the Kramer Foundation in 1964, and I think I started running it in 1987. And so there are a lot of great organizations in Madison, but since I can only pick one,
Well, you can pick more, but we like to shout out one. Yes.
I'm picking one to shout out.
All right.
Yeah. It's Operation Fresh Start.
Great nonprofit.
Yeah, they empower emerging adults age 16 to 24 on a path to self-sufficiency through education, mentoring, and employment training in Dane. They found that there are often young people who are categorized as opportunity youth, who are individuals disconnected from school and employment, who may not have access to traditional pathways to success. And so Operation Fresh Start provides an integrated work, earn, and learn model that combines education, paid workforce training, mentoring, wellness support, transportation assistance, meals, emergency financial support, and individualized guidance. And we just went to see one of their finished homes in Sun Prairie, and it was unbelievable. It was beautiful, and it was great to see all the kids there that helped build it. And I got to tell you, there isn't a mistake in that home. I mean, there's not a little swish of paint or a little crack where things don't fit together. This home is perfect.
A lot of pride, a lot of love.
A lot of pride and love, and to do something for people you don't even know
Mm-hmm.
will be able to afford to live there is a great thing. And I really admire the work that they do at Operation Fresh Start.
If you want to know more, you can go to operationfreshstart.org, and they truly are a great organization. We have one more thing before we go. You know what's coming up, Jim, rock and roll detective? Do you know what's coming?
The bubble?
The bubble's coming. Hey, Jim,
When's
when
it
is the
gonna
bubble?
pop?
When is the bubble going to break?
Yeah.
So hang on, Eric. Can you?
I know it's
fill?
coming up.
Can you fill?
Can I fill?
Yeah, fill. Just like hum or something.
Fill some
Sing a song.
Yeah,
Happy
Is it?
birthday to
Oh,
you.
thank
Happy
you.
birthday to
Wow.
Jim's birthday is coming up soon, and you're going to be 22 years old.
Well, yes, 70 is the new 22.
Yes, for those of you at home that are aren't watching on the video, we got Jim a lovely
Thank you.
little bundt cake.
You guys are so nice.
You're welcome. And it's, I think it's red velvet. Is that okay?
This is the first cake I've ever received on a podcast.
Really?
I've done about 900 podcasts, so this becomes the
High five,
most
John. High
special
five.
podcast of all time.
Tell your friends, Jim. Tell your friends. Tell our 17 listeners. You know what I would do if I were you? I would go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or better, your local bookstore.
Right.
Right.
And if you want to learn more about Jim,
Yeah. Oh, this is a good plug. We should probably talk about this.
roll detective.com.
Yeah. The Beatles Who Vanished. Classic rock albums, Nirvana, Nevermind, Mysteries in the Music, case closed, and the new book, which is coming out, which is called Conversations with Scotty Moore, about Elvis Presley.
Right.
Flip that. We'll fix it in post.
flip that.
I'll fix that later. We'll fix that later. Rock and Roll Detective, real job, Jim Berkenstadt. Thank you so much for being on the One Off podcast.
Thank you so much. Having listened to your podcast, I enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
And so I'm honored to be on.
And we didn't even pay you to say that.
No, I said that all on my own.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I told you he was fascinating.
He was really fun. I loved his stories
Yeah.
about the rock and roll.
Jim Berkenstadt, the Rock and Roll Detective. You can find out more info at rockandrolldetective.com. As a Beatles fan, did you get all tingly listening to Jim's stories?
Oh, it was great. And I know he's got so many more stories to tell, too. You know what? You should bring him back.
We should bring him back. Let's bring him back next year when his new book's out.
That's a great plan.
You want to know more, go to the rockandrolldetective.com. Thank you, Jim, for being on the show.
You know what I loved about this episode, John?
Tell me.
This was another guy who had a dream when he was younger.
Yeah.
And he told his parents, right? I want to work for the Beatles someday, and I want to work for the Cubs.
And did both of
He
them.
did both of those things.
Yep.
How inspirational is that?
Yeah. When you were young, did you tell your parents like what your dream job was? Did you tell them I'm going to be a rock and roll star?
No, I didn't actually want to do that until I saw the Beatles anthology. I didn't really want to do music, and that was in high school. So when I was younger, my grandma and I used to watch everything on National Geographic about ancient things like ancient Egypt and Greece and all those old places. I love that stuff, and conspiracy, the alien stuff. So for a time, I thought I was going to be
A pyramid builder?
For a time, I thought I was going to be an archaeologist who was going to figure out where Atlantis is.
Oh, I see. I thought you were going to say the mysteries of the pyramid, but you moved to Atlantis.
I want to know the bigger mysteries, John.
You should follow Jim's footsteps and become like the pyramid detective.
I could do that.
You could.
Problem is, now that I'm older,
Yeah.
I feel like I might be claustrophobic a little bit.
Really?
So I don't know if I could go into the pyramids. They're very, very tiny tunnels.
You haven't been in one yet.
I haven't, but we are planning a trip.
You should go.
My wife and I, Sarah, lovely Sarah, shout out. We're going to do it. Yeah. I don't know how soon, maybe in the next couple years, I think.
Cool.
We'll make that trip.
When I was little,
Yeah.
I
What did
told
little Johnny want to do? Wait, I bet I know. Can I guess?
Yes.
You wanted to have a podcast one day with your
No.
best friend.
No.
Third best friend.
Yeah, I'm glad you changed that. No, not at all. I told my parents I was going to be the next Steven Spielberg.
How's that going?
Missed it by that much.
Well, what's he done?
Nothing. I'm at like, remember 1941? That's where I am.
No, I don't know what that means.
Oh, he made a, you thought I meant the year?
Yeah, sure, I remember. It's not a great year for a lot of people.
He made a film 1941, which has been is trashed constantly, and I kind of enjoyed it. But like that's where if I'd reached that level of, I haven't even reached that. No,
You've done some stuff.
yeah, sure.
You've made some awesome music videos with me.
Yep, that's it. All right, we got to go. Thanks to the Big Dreamers United for sponsoring the One Off podcast. More information at Big Dreamers United. And thanks to Lola's for letting us record there.
La, 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 la. That'd be a great karaoke song.
That would be. You could probably sing that. You want to rent the sidecar? Go to lolasmadison.com for more information. And maybe you'll run into me and Eric there singing karaoke.
Yeah, join us.
Could happen.
We'll see you soon, folks.
All right, bye-bye now.